To echo what I just said about the determination of the foreign currency in terms of US dollars, here a summary. So the first factor we discussed was inflation, and that has been proved to be very effective at determining the exchange rate. And the foreign currency under our discussion is euro. And so we are looking at the inflation of the US and the eurozone. Let's say if US has a higher inflation compared to the eurozone, and so that means the euro inflation is relatively lower, then what would happen is the price level, US price is higher and the euro price is lower. Okay, so that basically means Americans, US will buy more from the eurozone because they have a cheaper price. And the eurozone, the Germans, Italians, and the Spanish will buy less from US. Okay, so that's the result from price differentials. Okay, so when US buys from the eurozone, that basically is US import and eurozone export. Okay, we're talking about the same thing, and this increases. And when we talk about the eurozone, the Germans, Italians buy from the US, so that's a eurozone import and US exports. Okay, and that decreases. So now let's discuss what the currency trade here. When we buy from the European people, then we will need to convert our dollars to euros. So that implies we're going to do such conversion. We will need to convert US dollars to euros. Okay, so that is about sell US dollars in the exchange market and buy euros in the exchange market. When we do a lot more of this conversion, so the dollar supply will go up, euro demand will go up as well. And talking about the other side of the story, when the Europeans are buying less from US, so when they buy from the US, they will need to convert euros to dollars. So the Europeans will sell their own currency in the exchange market to buy US dollars. And these activities will be reduced due to the different price level between the two places. So they both would go down. Alrighty, since we're analyzing the currency of euro here, I will just pinpoint to what happens to the euro's demand and the euro supply. So if you are buying euros, that's demand of euros. If you are selling euros, so that's gonna be supply of euros. Okay, so you're looking at a higher demand and a lower supply. So for euros, the demand would go up and the supply would go down. Okay, so the joint result would be the euro price goes up, so euro will appreciate. You can do the same analysis if you're looking at the US dollars. So if you look at the dollars, so supply of dollars increases because we are buying more, we're providing more dollars in the exchange market. And then the Europeans are buying less, they need less dollars in the exchange market. So for US dollars, our story would be the supply would go up. Okay, supply go up and the demand would go down. And each of this effect would push the dollar value go down in price of euros. So the overall result here is dollar depreciate. Okay, as I said earlier, if a country with higher inflation, then its own currency would depreciate. Now let's talk about the interest rate. So if there's an interest rate differential, then it is different to earn income or returns from the investment in the two places. So now let's say we have another foreign country, Japan. And this time we want the Japanese interest rate to be higher than US. Okay, so the US interest rate becomes relatively lower. As a result of the interest rate change, then Japan becomes a more rewarding place for international investment. So US will invest more in Japan. The Japanese will invest less in US. Okay, because US interest is less than their domestic interest. So if US invest in Japan, and that involves the currency conversion from dollars to Japanese yen. And if the Japanese are investing in US, that basically requires the Japanese to convert the yen to US dollars. If you are converting dollars to Japanese yen, then you are providing a supply of dollars, okay? And if you are buying Japanese yen, then you are providing a demand of Japanese yen. And the same story, if the Japanese are selling yen, then they are providing a supply of yen and simultaneously create a demand of dollars. Because of the international investment activities, there will be more dollar to yen conversion, and there will be less yen to dollar conversion. So what happens to US dollar? You will see that the supply of dollar goes up and the demand of a dollar would go down. Okay, what happened to Japanese yen? You will see the supply of a Japanese yen is going down and the demand of Japanese yen is going up. Okay, and this will eventually push the yen to appreciate and the US dollar depreciate. So this is the story. And talking about the central bank intervention, let's see, we have a central bank, the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve can only intervene if they are adopting a fixed exchange regime, which I will talk about later. So fixed exchange rate regime is about the dollar has a very stable exchange rate against a major currency, let's say British pound. And if the inflation between the two countries and the interest rate between the two countries create some downward or upward pressure, making the dollar either depreciate or appreciate, then the central bank will come out and intervene to make the exchange rate still as the previous level. Okay. If the Federal Reserve adopt a floating exchange rate regime, then there's no intervention here. Okay, there's no intervention. They only intervene when they are using a fixed exchange regime. So there are two ways for the Federal Reserve, which is the central bank US, of course, to intervene. One is the direct intervene. Okay, another is indirect. So if they directly intervene, then for example, if they want a pound to depreciate and a dollar to appreciate, what they can do is to sell pounds and buy dollars, okay, in the exchange market. All right, so this is done in the exchange market. That's called a direct intervention. They just deal with the currency dealers in that market. If they want to do indirect intervention, so they cannot just go to the exchange market. They can't just go to the exchange market. However, they can just adopt a different monetary policy. And this time it's a contractionary monetary policy. If they want the dollar to appreciate and pounds to depreciate, they would do a contractionary. So what is a contractionary policy? That is about reduce or decrease the supply of dollars, okay? And the dollar supply is the only thing they can do in this indirect intervention, because the Federal Reserve or the central bank of any other countries, all they can do is to print the money. They can determine to print more or print less. They cannot directly affect the demand of US dollars, okay? Only the foreigners can affect that. but for the central bank, they can only affect the supply of dollars. So the supply of dollars is going down. Okay, so what would happen is this would lead to a lower U.S. inflation. So the U.S. inflation would be lower. As I previously demonstrated, the country with higher inflation would have its currency depreciate, and a country with lower inflation would have its currency appreciate. So the ultimate result is a dollar appreciates. So this is what I wrote earlier right here. So if a country with a higher inflation, then dollar would depreciate. The higher inflation basically means there's more money being printed than the goods and services being produced in the country. And this right here is the opposite situation. So we have less dollar printed, so US is experiencing less inflation than dollar would appreciate. It is quite different from just buying dollars directly in the exchange market, and it takes longer time to take effect. So that is our case. We want the dollar to appreciate and the pound to depreciate. Now let's do another practice. What about the goal here? The goal here is to make the dollar depreciate. Let's see, right now the goal has changed. We want the dollar to depreciate and the yen to appreciate. Okay, in the fixed exchange regime. Okay, fixed regime. Of course, under the flexible regime, the central bank doesn't intervene at all. To achieve that goal, the direct intervention would be just to simply sell dollars and buy Japanese yen. That's very easy to do. It's very easy to devalue yourself. Okay, so that basically creates an artificial supply of dollars, so the dollar value will go down and the yen's value would go up. And the indirect policy here, again, is through monetary policy, and this time we call it expansionary monetary policy. Okay, so the expansionary is about printing more money. Okay, so just to increase the dollar supply in the domestic economy. Okay, just to print more U.S. dollars in the own economy, then what happened here is dollar inflation would go up, okay, because the production did not catch up. So when dollar inflation goes up, what happened is U.S. Price level is higher than Japan. U.S. buy more from the Japanese, and the Japanese buy less from the U.S., and that creates less dollar demand and more dollar supply, and more yen demand and less yen supply. So what happened is dollar would depreciate and the yen would appreciate. So I have talked about the monetary policy here. You should know that it's only related with the supply, and it has nothing to do with the demand of US dollars. Okay, it has nothing to do with the demand of US dollars. And the monetary policy is about printing money, and that is the supply of a dollar. They can decide whether to print more money or print less money, okay? But it still is about printing money, it's still about supplying the money. Alrighty, now we have another pair of terminology. What is a revalue and what is a devalue? These vocabularies are verbs. So basically the subject is a central bank. And the central bank, only the central bank can revalue or devalue its currency, okay, by direct intervene or indirect intervene. Okay, just say by intervention, either through the monetary market or through the exchange market. The result here is for the revaluation, the home currency value would go up. Okay, would go up. Let's say appreciate. Okay, for devaluation, the home currency would depreciate. Although there's appreciation and depreciation involves here, but revaluation does not really equal to the same as appreciation, because appreciation could be determined by a lot of factors, including the central bank intervention and inflation, interest rate, and income level. But the activities of a revaluation or devaluation has to be purely done by the central bank. Right here, the example I showed is about dollar depreciation, makes the dollar value goes down. So this is the devaluation of US dollar by the Federal Reserve. If we want the dollar value to go up, all right, let me just write it up here. If we want the dollar value to go up, the central bank would implement a revaluation policy to make the dollar value go up. And I have talked earlier that the central bank can either directly buy or sell the currency in the exchange market, or they can increase or decrease the supply of the home currency in the monetary market in their own country, of course. Okay. Later on, when we do the case studies, we will see a lot of the revaluation policies done by the central banks in Mexico, in Thailand, or in Argentina. So just to be familiar with these vocabularies.